Ever get lost in a song? Like time just melts away. You know that feeling.
Yeah, totally.
I think we all have. Well, the text we're looking at today calls that the extended present. This idea that music, poetry, even life itself can kind of stretch our experience of time. Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, it really makes you think about those moments, right? Like where past, present, and future all kind of blur together.
Exactly. And the text actually paints this picture for us. Like
Yeah.
you're on a porch swing, maybe humming along to a familiar tune, and suddenly lines from your favorite poem pop into your head.
I love that.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I think it's trying to show us how different art forms can intertwine and build on each other, to create something even richer than just the individual parts. But it also got me thinking, what is it about music specifically that resonates with us on such a deep level?
That's a great question. And it's interesting because the text actually describes music as tapping into something almost primal. These wordless rhythms in the soul, it calls them.
Okay.
Wordless rhythms.
Yeah. It's like music is speaking a language that our emotions just understand instinctively before our brains can even catch up.
I like that. It's true. So it's like music bypasses all the noise and goes straight to the heart of things.
Right.
And the text talks about how poetry tries to capture those rhythms with words. But music just does it naturally without even trying.
Exactly.
And then when you combine those two,
Yeah.
when you set a poem to music, the text calls it this grand and glorious experience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who hasn't felt their heart swell during like a powerful musical number or something? Yeah. It's true. And that's actually where the text introduces this idea of the smoothly rolling now. Have you ever heard that phrase before?
No, but I like it.
Me neither. But the text argues that music creates this unique blend of past, present, and future.
Okay, interesting.
Almost like how we experience life itself. So I'm curious to hear more about this smoothly rolling now. It sounds like time travel in a way.
Well, yeah, in a sense it is. Just think about like listening to your favorite symphony. So as you're caught up in the current melody, the memory of the previous movement is still kind of lingering in your mind, shaping your experience.
Right.
And at the same time, you're anticipating that soaring crescendo, is coming up. So it's like music is weaving all these layers of time together into this seamless tapestry.
So it's not just about the notes we're hearing right now. It's about how those notes connect to what we've already heard and what we expect to hear next. Like our brains are constantly pulling from memory and anticipation to make sense of the music.
Exactly. And then the text takes this concept of the smoothly rolling now and suggests that life itself operates in a similar way.
You mean how each moment is colored by memories of the past and hopes for the future?
Yeah, precisely. Just like a musical phrase, our present moment isn't isolated. It carries echoes of where we've been and hints of where we might be going. And the text uses verses from the Rubaiyat to further illustrate this point. You know those poems that are all about time's passage and savoring the present?
Oh yeah, the moving finger writes and having writ moves on.
Right.
It's interesting how the text brings those verses in, like a parallel track almost. Because the Rubaiyat also talks about embracing life's fleeting moments, right? Like that line, this clay, where are its makers now? It's a powerful reminder that everything changes,
Yeah.
Everything passes.
It is, and yet there's also this sense of beauty in that transience, right? The text describes it as finding a moment of eternity, something fleeting and precious, like that proverbial bird of time.
Okay, so we're talking about moments that feel eternal, but are also by definition temporary. How does that even work?
That's the paradox, isn't it? And that's where I think both music and poetry come in. They offer us a way to capture and hold on to those fleeting moments, even if just for a little while. Think about it like this.
Okay, I think I see what you mean. It's like taking a photograph. You're freezing a moment in time so you can go back to it later.
Exactly.
But instead of a visual image, music and poetry create these emotional snapshots.
Right, and the text even mentions that specifically. How music can evoke this sense of timelessness, even though the music itself exists in time, you know?
It's true. Like when you hear a particular song and it just takes you back to a specific moment.
Yeah, like you're reliving it almost.
Exactly. And it's not just that you remember it, it's like you actually feel all those same emotions again. As if that moment is somehow imprinted on the music itself.
And that gets right to the heart of what the text is suggesting, I think. That maybe, just maybe, music allows us to experience a taste of eternity.
Yeah.
Even if it's fleeting.
Wow. Eternity in a song.
Right, like holding eternity in your hand for the duration of that song.
Okay, that's kind of blowing my mind a little.
It's a lot to take in, right?
It is. And then the text takes this whole idea even further. It starts to talk about life itself as a form of music. Like we're all composing our own personal symphonies as we go.
Right, and it asks this really powerful question. If our lives are like songs, what kind of music are we composing with each passing moment?
Okay, now that is a question.
It makes you think, right?
It really does. Are we creating like a catchy pop song or a mournful ballad, maybe a chaotic jazz improvisation?
Or maybe a little bit of everything, right? Each choice we make, each action we take, it's like adding a note to the symphony of our lives.
And some symphonies are definitely more listenable than others.
That's true. But I think the text is suggesting that we should at least be mindful of the music we're putting out into the world, you know?
Yeah, like maybe we should try to be a little more intentional about the notes we choose. And that takes me back to what the text was saying earlier about those Rubaiyat verses. Embracing both the sweet and the bitter because they're all part of the tapestry. You can't have a symphony that's all soaring melodies, right? You need those quiet moments, those dissonances to create depth and complexity.
Absolutely. And the text highlights that by weaving those Rubaiyat verses throughout. Almost like a counter melody to its own ideas. It's a constant reminder that life is full of contrasts, highs and lows, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes life interesting, right?
Exactly. It's not about pretending those contrasts don't exist. It's about recognizing how they work together.
So instead of trying to force everything to be upbeat and positive all the time, we should be embracing those darker notes as well, because they're just as important to the overall composition of our lives.
Yeah. Precisely. And I love how the text actually talks about that in terms of music too. It talks about this smooth transition through past, present, and future, how each element kind of flows into the next, creating this sense of continuity.
And it's saying we can find that same smoothly rolling now in our own lives if we pay attention. If we recognize those echoes of the past, the vibrancy of the present, and the anticipation of what's to come.
Right.
It's about understanding that these aren't separate compartments of time, but rather these threads that are all woven together to make up the fabric of our experience.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to really get this now.
I'm glad to hear it.
So instead of dwelling on the past or stressing about the future, we should be trying to experience those things as part of the continuous flow of the present moment.
Precisely. And the text emphasizes that each moment, with all its layers and complexities, holds the potential for something really profound.
Yeah, it's like that line that really stuck with me. Each one of life's moments contains eternal reward, since both past and future are smoothly rolled up there inward. It sounds kind of complicated, but I think it's getting at that idea that every single moment is just bursting with meaning if we just open ourselves up to experiencing it fully.
You got it. And that brings us right back to the extended present. It's not about literally making time stand still, It's about expanding our awareness to fully embrace the richness of each moment, with all its layers and connections to the past and future.
I like how the text describes those moments of shared passion, like when lovers kind of steal away from the mundane and create a little slice of eternity together.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that those moments of heightened experience, those glimpses of the eternal, are available to us amidst the everyday, if we're open to them.
So it could be anything, really. A stolen kiss, a breathtaking sunset, even just that feeling of being totally engrossed in a piece of music,
Yeah.
they all have the power to pull us into the present so fully that we completely lose track of time.
And that's something I think a lot of us can relate to. How many times have you been so caught up in a good book or a conversation with a friend that you totally lose track of
Up on
time?
my time.
Yeah.
All the time. It's like our brains just switch off from all the worrying and planning and just lock onto that present moment.
Right, and those moments can be so powerful. They remind us of what it really means to be present and engaged with life, you know?
Cool.
But what I find interesting is that the text doesn't shy away from the less glamorous side of this whole time thing either.
Oh, you mean like those lines about how we oft-true wine till dregs to drink, how we flaunt our finery till it's practically rags?
Exactly.
Not exactly the most uplifting imagery.
Right, but it's real. The text is reminding us that life is full of contrasts, you know? We have those moments of abundance, those peak experiences. But we also have those times when we're scraping the bottom of the barrel just trying to get by.
And I think it's easy to get caught up in those extremes,
Oh, absolutely.
dwelling on past failures or, worrying about future uncertainties. But the text seems to be saying that true wisdom lies in accepting those ups and downs as part of the natural rhythm of life.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. It's not about denying the difficult parts of life. It's about recognizing them as part of the larger tapestry.
Like every song has its high notes and its low notes. And it's the combination of those that create the melody.
Exactly.
And that takes us right back to that powerful question the text poses at the end. If our lives are like songs, what kind of music are we creating with our choices and our actions?
It's a question that really stays with you, isn't it?
It really does.
It's like a call to live more intentionally, to consider the legacy we're building with each passing moment.
So are we choosing notes of kindness, of creativity, of courage?
Or are we letting fear and negativity dictate the melody?
It's almost like we're all composers in a way, responsible for shaping the music of our own lives. And hopefully it's a symphony that others will find meaningful and inspiring.
And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful.
Right.
Just like a symphony has its quiet moments, its dissonances, our lives will have their share of challenges and setbacks.
That's for sure.
But it's how we navigate those challenges, how we learn and grow from them, that ultimately shapes the overall composition.
So maybe the key takeaway here is to embrace that smoothly rolling now, with all its complexities and contradictions.
Absolutely.
To savor the highs, learn from the lows, and try to find those moments of beauty and connection wherever we can.
Beautifully said. And to remember that even though each moment is fleeting, it's also an opportunity to create something lasting and meaningful.
I love that.
So as you move through your day, ask yourself, what kind of music will you bring to the world? What kind of mark will you leave on the symphony of life?
That's a great question for all of us to ponder. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive for today. A huge thank you to our expert for joining us and sharing their insights.
It was my pleasure.
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.